Good morning, Marijn. Lovely to have you with us today for this interview on realizing our potential. And it's a series, as you know, it's a series that we're doing, and it sort of supports my work at RiverRhee, where I'm a coach, a facilitator, a trainer. And it also appeals very much to the kind of things that Michelle believes in, are important to you, Michelle. And it's lovely having you as my co-interviewer. So perhaps you just say a few words about yourself, and then we'll get started in the discussion with Marijn.
Thanks, Elizabeth. So I'm head of blended learning for an edtech company in Cambridge, and my role is really to provide solutions for e-learning and face-to-face training. And I have a scientific background, so I'm really interested in different people's careers and how they've gone from, you know, starting out to where they are now, and also what their future goals are. So Marijn, I'm really intrigued to hear more about your career, and also how it's similar and how it differs to mine as well.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Michelle. So Marijn, yeah, if you could just sort of introduce yourself, say who you are, and a little something about what you're planning to discuss today, and who might be interested in hearing about it. That would be really great.
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth and Michelle, for inviting me for this interview. I think it's really good that you're doing this, actually, and I think that it will be very useful to have all these different interviews with different people for many people too, who are thinking about their future steps in their careers, and to understand how others make these choices and move forward in their career. So really thanks for doing this. Well, and to introduce myself, my name is Marijn Vlaming, and I'm from the Netherlands, and I work for Charles River, and my role at the moment is head of biology. Charles River is a huge company, so we have about 18,000 people at the moment, and I'm responsible for 2 biology teams, one in Leiden in the Netherlands and one in Beerse in Belgium. Well, and as you asked, Elisabeth, well, what I would like to share today is, of course, a little bit about how I ended up in this role, which is actually a really nice job, which I really enjoy. But maybe the choices I made through getting here, and just like Michelle, I have also a scientific background, and of course, I still work in a scientific environment, but I have much more of a management role now, and I think it would be potentially interesting for other people, maybe young scientists and people who are just studying in university and thinking about what they want to do with their careers, to share the possibilities, but also to kind of maybe help at least explain how I made choices during my career and why I made these specific choices.
Yeah, so that's probably a great place to start with, really, is what are some of the big choices that you've made? What are perhaps the landmarks or milestones in your career? That would be great to start with. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess it starts all when you go to university and have to decide what you want to go to study when you're in high school. And when I was in high school, I already kind of knew or felt that I wanted to do something at least good, let's say, something useful, and also came to the conclusion that I wanted to start to work on developing drugs, so to treat patients. I didn't want to become a doctor, but I knew that I wanted to do something like that. So I decided that probably scientific research or developing medicine would be what I wanted to do. Well, actually, I still am doing that. So I in the end probably was right at that time. I never regretted actually that decision at that point, and started studying actually biomedical engineering. And the reason I studied that was because I didn't want to completely fully jump into the all lab work, but I really wanted to also understand more about how it works in a company and more applied research. And in technical university, you also learn that, so more product development kind of things. And during that study, I indeed got in touch with all kinds of different topics, let's say. So it goes all the way from math, informatics, to chemistry and biology. And I really enjoyed being a master's student in the chemistry lab there. and really working again on developing drugs. And when I ended up in that lab, I really found out that I really enjoyed being in the lab. But during my studies, I had also done different things. So I've been involved in a student organization for our studies. I studied abroad for a few months. So I tried to not rush through to my university, but really take the time and try to figure out what I really liked and what I wanted. And I think that was actually good to do. And I would really advise people not to try to figure out to completely finish your studies as soon as you can, but really take the time while you're studying to think about what you want and to try different things and see different things. And when I got the chance there during my studies to do things besides my normal studies, like management training and more classes about management and companies and law and things like that, I really got interested in that as well. So already when I was studying in the lab, I knew that I wanted to do something with management as well. So I kind of came to the conclusion, okay, I want to combine management with science. And when I talked to the professor, he was a little bit laughing at me because when he asked me, what do you want to become when you grow up, let's say? And I said, well, probably a manager. He was laughing because he said, what do you want to do when you're a manager? I'm also a manager. I'm a professor. I'm managing people all day, but that's actually not what I really meant. But I did feel that I wanted to do something with people and science and kind of combine that, and also in a company, because I wanted to do really translational work and bring products to the market and not only scientific articles, let's say. So that kind of helped me kind of slowly talking to people and getting straight for myself a bit what I wanted. And after my master's, I decided to go for a PhD because I still wanted to be in science. And I understood from talking to people again that you need to have a PhD almost, at least that's what I learned, to further develop in science. To be honest, if you ask me now, I don't think that's actually the case, because we have people in our team at Charles River who are really good scientists, but who don't have a PhD. But at that point, for me, that was the best way to move forward. And I decided to go into a PhD group, which was quite at the top level, let's say, of science at the Netherlands Cancer Institute. Very ambitious and also competitive environment, but I actually felt quite good in that environment. And the reason I went there was not so much for that or for the prestige or anything, but because I wanted to do a PhD in a hospital so that I could really apply my work or see at least where my work was being applied. And that is something that always comes back again when I make decisions on next steps in my career. During my PhD, I really enjoyed it, and I had a really good time in that lab. I learned a lot, but still wanted to do more applied stuff. So I decided after my PhD to step out of the academic world and move into more like a company environment. And I went to a company or an institute actually where I could do both. So I could on the one hand do some academic research with other universities, but I also did contract research for pharmaceutical companies. So I did all kinds of studies, all the way from in vitro cell-based assays to in vivo to even clinical studies. And well, during that time, I was there for about 6 years as a scientist. I learned really that I enjoyed working for clients actually, and there I kind of felt that okay, this contract research is something for me. It's very dynamic. It's also very challenging, of course, and can be stressful, but I feel good there. This is something I like to do, and of course, again, the business combined with the science. And to me, it didn't really matter what the specific science was about. It was more about how do you translate science or scientific knowledge into real applications that are in the end useful for patients or for people in the world. So that's always what has driven me. But looking forward, when I was in that area, I also started thinking about what do I want for my career. So there's on the one hand, what do I want to work on? That's clear, that I know, and that will always be the same, I think. But how do I want to develop my career? Do I want to stay like a scientist or project leader? or do I want to further develop into management? And actually at that point I didn't know, but what I did know is that I wanted to learn more about growing a company, building a company. So I took kind of a risky step, I think, at least that's what others would see, would think, is to kind of leave that very nice, comfortable job in this contract research organization to join a startup company which was actually a spin-off from the university. And in that company, actually, we worked with 7 people. I was employee number 7, and there I grew with the company. And as a group, we started building the company, and it was really exciting times, and learned again a lot, but especially in that side on management, because we had to kind of grow this company. The company grew very fast, and in a few years we were not 7 people, but 70 people, and we had 3 different locations in 3 different countries. It was all very exciting, and I also learned a lot from that, of course, on managing not only the company, but also myself, of course, and how to manage my time and deal with it. So there I actually really got to learn what I meant with management and what I really liked, and that is something that I'm still doing. I moved to Charles River, and there the company is again much larger, and the group of people that I'm managing is much larger, but it's still in the end the same. How do you grow a team, or how do you build a team, and still also with it again the same purpose to, well, as Charles River says, it create healthier lives, and that is exactly what I want to be in. So in the end, right now, if you ask me, I'm in my dream job, and I hope that many others can also find their way in their own way, let's say, because for everyone that's different, of course. What is your dream job?
Wow, what a wonderful story, Marijn. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I can see your passion, enthusiasm, shining all the way through it. And I think what struck me, and we can explore this a bit more in a few minutes, is the quality of your self-reflection that seemed to go on all the way through your journey, as you were sort of thinking about what it was that was important to you, how you might pursue that, what your next steps might be, and the things that seemed to stand out as being really important to you were making a difference, being able to do something practical in the area of science and healthcare, and managing people, and combining that sort of scientific excellence, expertise with managing people as well. And I know often when we're going through our careers, we don't necessarily know what we want to do, and things just kind of happen, and we build on opportunities. But it seemed like it seems from the way you're telling us that there was quite a clear trajectory for you. So that's really interesting. I'm going to just ask Michelle at this point if there are things that you'd like to reflect upon from what you've heard from Marijn.
Definitely, there was a couple of things that really resonated with me, and one in particular is you said you worked in a hospital, or your PhD was in a hospital, and that you really liked being with the patients and seeing your work being translated. And I also my first postdoc was in a hospital in the US, and I felt that same thing. It's very different to working in a research institute or a university, where actually you see the patients on a day-to-day basis, and it's a really unique and special environment, I think. And I'm just interested that you felt that same thing.
Yeah, indeed. I think if you're a scientist, in the end, I think everyone wants to make a difference. And I think even I wasn't in most cases really directly in contact with patients. I did walk into that hospital every day, seeing patients, in that case, suffering from cancer. And that is really motivating, of course, to know that you're doing it for those people in the end, and hopefully at a certain point come to a point that people are actually being cured, and that's why you're doing it. Yeah.
So I think that you had a vision. It seems like you had a vision for where you wanted to go, and it seemed like you had some values, things that were important to you. perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about those values. What was really important, or what is really important to you?
Yeah, so one important value I probably already mentioned, that was that I want to make a difference, as you call it, Elisabeth. I think that's indeed the right way to say it. To do something useful. I used to call it, and you know, I love doing research, but I'm not sure if I could do it if it would not have any kind of important purpose, let's say. And I think for me, that is to have a purpose in life in general, but especially also in your job, because that's a large part of your life. I think that is really important. And my purpose is to get patients healthier, or treat patients in the right way, let's say. But there's also other values that I find very important, at least for me personally. And one of them I always say is what I call freedom. And that is probably more kind of having your own authority to kind of be able to make your own choices within your job, within your life, but to focus on careers in your job. So to have some kind of level of independence, and of course, as a scientist, you usually have that. But I think it's good to be aware that, of course, in relate to that freedom or independence that I find really important, also comes responsibility. And I think that is something that I actually really, for me, they go one in one, hand in hand. And I really like that, to have that responsibility. It can be sometimes stressful, but like you say, Elisabeth already, to need to make a difference. And then you need to have some level of freedom or independence, and take the responsibility at a certain point. Ownership, as we call it within children, right? Yeah. So to have the opportunity and to get the opportunities to take those to take that ownership, and for that also, of course, you need the people around you to give you that. And on the other hand, there's also your own role and also your own responsibility to take it, and that I find really important, I think.
It's really good to hear you say that freedom, responsibility balance and interplay, because very often people dwell only on the freedom and forget the responsibility that comes with that. So let's talk a bit about the management side of things, because you said that was important to you quite early on in your career. I'm curious as to know why that was, why management became so important to you, and perhaps how some of the values that you've been talking about translate to your work as a manager.
Yeah, so to be honest, I'm not 100% sure how I came up with the idea that I wanted to be a manager. I think in general, it's probably because I like interacting with people. I'm not someone who is like very social in that respect. So I'm not someone who goes to a party because they want to be talking to people all day, and I'm relatively shy, probably by nature. But I do like to work with people, and it's probably more about helping people than about doing something with people or leading people in that respect. I want to help people, and probably my view, and maybe looking back at least, so I'm not sure if I could have said it in that way at that point, but now I would say, yeah, I think I probably wanted to be helping people and had the feeling that by being a manager I could do that, and actually I still do think that that's true, because for me, for example, well, on the one hand, helping people in the sense of what the purpose that I have in kind of developing drugs and being involved in those processes. But on the other hand, also helping people to develop their career and find their own way in their career. And the people in my team, I would like also to help them to further develop and also find a job and find the right way of working that works for them. So that's probably what I was looking for in the management. But on the other hand, I also really liked, like I already said, working with clients. I did that also as a student, where I worked in a bar, and I enjoyed that, just to run this business. And it's also the dynamics around it. You have a lot of stuff to take care of at the same time, and that makes it on one hand challenging, which I'm always looking for challenges, I think. and dynamic. And that's something that that management certainly has, of course.
Yeah, and actually, I was just remembering you talking about being involved in the startup, and so there's definitely a challenge thread that's running through here as well, challenging yourself. So what resources do you think have either people or things that you've learned about have really helped you become the person that you are and the manager that you are?
Yeah, of course, especially a lot of people, I would say. So I've had help from a lot of people mentoring me, coaching me, having the conversations with me that I now have with people in my team, asking, okay, where do you want to go? What do you want to develop? Or indeed giving me those challenges, those responsibilities. Once I dare to say that I was up to that, or maybe even if I didn't dare to say that, they would kind of come with a new challenge that I was maybe like a little bit worried about, but in the end I took it on. And so I think if you ask me, most of your development is by learning on the job, right? And doing things. But I also got a lot of help from trainers like you, Elisabeth. So with specific coaching and training on management development, where I was lucky enough in especially the company I joined after my PhD, where there was a lot of investment in development of people, and it's actually the same at Charles River, where you can really get trainings on management, project management.
And it seems to me also perhaps a mindset, your mindset, Marijn, to be open to that learning and that growth and development. That's
true. We had a conversation about this recently with a colleague, and I think a lot has to do with mindset. It depends. Of course, you have to first decide what you want, where you want to end up, and of course, you don't know exactly. But for me, the challenges that we mentioned, that is something that kind of pushes me. So I'm continuously pushing myself in that respect to take on new challenges. And my experience is that if you, at the point where something gets where you get a little bit nervous and where you feel like, okay, this is not something I've done before, now I'm going to get nervous. That is the point where you really start learning new things. So, and that is also something, maybe if you come back to the values, learning new things, and that's probably what most scientists make them scientists. You want to every time do something new or learn something new. If you take on new challenges, or if you find new challenges for yourself, then you're always at the point where you are learning again and learning new things. So that is something I think that is a mindset that I have, and I probably just more like that, I think. But
that's wonderful to hear. So, Michelle, have you got a final question for Marijn before we wrap up this conversation?
Yeah, I do, and my question is based on your time when you were at the startup company, and I guess, is there anything that you wish you had taken advantage of or taken an opportunity? Like, looking back, is there something you wish you had done? Because I know working in a startup, right, you end up wearing so many hats, doing lots of different things, and then and I'm still kind of in that phase. So I'm just curious to know if there's something that you would have done perhaps slightly differently or taken advantage of.
Well, yeah, I must say, and that's probably also what you're experiencing in a startup, Michelle, is that things are kind of growing, and you're kind of in some kind of a train, and it doesn't really, or a roller coaster, maybe that doesn't stop. And so I think it's hard to look back and say, okay, this is what we should have done differently, or this is what we should have, what I should have learned. I think I learned a lot from the fact that we grew very fast, and all of a sudden, so it's more about being open to change, and because it's continuously changing, and maybe if you ask me, I think I could have done better in that respect to take along the team with that, because there's so much changing, and you have a team also you're responsible for, And yeah, and that is of course going so fast that some people have more difficulties catching up or keeping up than others. And some people are really open to change and they love it. They want to be in an environment that's continuously changing, but there's also people that might not really enjoy the change, and they might be a little bit resistant to change in the beginning, and you have to take them a bit more along. So I think that part to be really aware of that, and to give also a place to those kind of people, let's say, because they're also of course very important for your team. That would be something I would really advise people who are now in a startup company or kind of building a startup company like that.
Yeah, that's a terrific insight, isn't it? Just being attentive to the impact of change for the people that are around you, that are working with you. That's a really useful insight.
I think it's in general for leaders and managers that sometimes you're already at a few more steps ahead because you've had the time to think about it, and you have a lot of time to talk about it, and then all of a sudden you want to kind of implement that change. But for the people in your team, that's the first time they hear about it. So you have to, as a manager, also realize that that's the case, and take the time for that and to get used to that new change.
That seems to tie up quite nicely with one of our points right at the beginning of this conversation, which is that freedom and responsibility. So as a manager, you perhaps have some freedom around what you're going to do, what you're going to put forward for your team, but then you also have that responsibility to support them and help them through that change as well.
For sure,
Okay, Marijn, it's been lovely talking with you, and I'm just wondering if there was one takeaway message that you would like people to reflect upon or act upon as a result of your own experiences. What would that be?
I would say the most important is to think about what you want, and really kind of try to envision that. And for example, you could even make a drawing on what do you want to, how should your career look like, or your life actually. I think that's even more important, and there's part of that is a career, and really envision that. And once you have that clear for yourself, I think it's much easier to decide which steps you have to take to get there. And that might mean that you have to take some challenges, might mean you have to speak up sometimes and tell people that that's what you want to achieve. But then it will be easier to really get there.
Lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Marijn. It's fantastic.
Great. You're welcome, and thank you both. It was really nice talking to you both.